Hey everybody, it's Bridget Murphy back again. It's been a while. I'm here with my husband Ray and our very good friend and longtime trainer of Koru K9, Jefferson. Jefferson's been with Koru K9, we just recalled, for 10 years. So we're very excited to have him on today. And Jefferson, I just wanted to kick it over to you. Tell people a little bit about yourself, your background, and we always like to ask people the why you got into dog training.
It's pretty simple for me, really. So I was a fishing guide up in Alaska, and then I moved to the Bay Area with my wife that I met on vacation, and moved from a small town in Alaska to San Francisco, which was a major change. And I got myself a hunting dog, and he actually was very difficult. Had a lot of prey drive. Was very protective and territorial, and actually I had some issues with him, and so I actually hired Ray about, I don't know, 11, 12 years ago to come and help me out with him, and he really helped me. And so I was going back and forth to Alaska, and basically when I was about to start having kids, get married, have kids, I was looking for a new career, and reached out to Ray and did a mentorship program with him for a while. And so really my own dog is what really got me into dog training. He really changed our lives. I mean, I think 9 out of 10 people that would have got my dog, probably he would have gone to the pound. That's the kind of dog he was. He's a really difficult dog, but with Ray's help, it really helped me, turn that around. And then, I didn't really have intentions of really doing this career for as long as I've been doing it, but now I've been doing it for 10 years, and it's perfect for me and my family. It's something I can turn on and off. Yeah, that's basically my story. So I've been training dogs for 10 years now in San Francisco Bay Area, which I still believe is probably the best market in the world for training dogs, just because there's so many dogs, and people are really one-dimensional in the way that they think, and there's a huge positive only influence, and some people get to a point where it's just not working, and then they reach out to us a lot of times. So yeah, that's really my background there. Quick question before, guys, when I put you on mute, I can't hear you at all. I don't know when to come back in.
All right, just leave it open. It'll be fine.
Okay, cool.
All right, so it's kind of funny you mentioned that your dog got you into dog training. Well, our dog did too. If you remember, we had Luna. She was an absolute hot mess, and we made the mistake, or well, in retrospect, we didn't know, but we went down that road of doing a positive only training because it sounded great. Of course, why would I want to negative train my dog? But she was highly reactive, poorly socialized. But once we found that there was a big gap in dog training that was effective in the Bay Area, I think that's what led us to start Koru K9. And it's been a roller coaster. It's been over 13 years now, or 14 years, but it's been a long time. But it is kind of funny to hear your story and how it brought you in, because it's very similar to ours. And I do remember you were a great client. You did everything. In fact, you pretty much did everything on your own. You had it all figured out except for the place command. And once you figured that out, that was like the last little piece that got you over the edge. So that was kind of a cool memory.
Yeah, and going into place, one of my topics I want to talk about today is state of mind, because the idea of place, really helps with state of mind. But we can get into that in a little bit, because Gunner is the type of dog you need to be able to change his state of mind when certain triggers happen, and a lot of dogs are that way, of course.
I love it. This was, brought back great memories of early on in Koru's history. I still remember you as a client. You were, I think you earned Best Client award too. So we were stoked to have you on board.
Probably paid you guys the most over time. You really think about it, right?
At this point, right?
There's yeah, nobody else. All good. You paid me the most too, so it worked out perfect.
It's a good partnership. Well, let's dive in to the topic. As Jefferson mentioned, today's topic is perception and state of mind when it comes to dog training. So Jefferson, let's start with how does their emotional state maybe mirror or mimic the owner's emotional state of mind?
Yeah, I mean, if an owner's nervous or doesn't handle a situation correctly or confidently, right, then the dog is going to mirror that. Or if an owner is reactive in a situation, it's very likely that the dog is going to be reactive as well, because they're just doing what the owner does, or if the owner's just not effective, and so they're not properly communicating to the dog, what the action should be. They're actually doing the opposite of that. All the time I walk in for the first time, and I have the people hold the dog on leash, and the dog's wanting to get at me, and let's say they're growling and barking at me, and the owner's petting the dog saying, "It's okay, don't worry about it." And their intention is to soothe the dog and make the dog feel good, but what they're really doing is they're saying, "Good job for doing what you're doing." So really, I mean, I think that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, agreed. When you look at that situation, a dog and the owner, what do you look for first? Do you look for, I find this interesting because I'll tell you guys what I look for, but when you observe that, are you looking at the behavior? Are you looking at the connection between the dog and the owner? The energy? Is there a certain thing that you're looking for first at that point in time?
Yeah, I also want to know a very basic thing that people need to understand that goes on most of the time, and that is, I always say, hook your dog up to whatever you normally walk your dog on. So if that's a flat collar, if that's a harness, even if it's a prong collar, whatever. And I want to see what the dog does. Does the dog, let's say they're on a harness, do they want to get to me? And instead of trying to explain what opposition reflex is, which is the dog feels back pressure and they want to get to something, dog can also do opposition reflex. A donkey, I don't want to go, and you're pulling on them, I don't want to go, right? So it just brings that drive to do whatever they're doing more. I want to see that because it's really good information, because I believe, if a dog's doing that in the house, they're probably doing it outside. The number one thing I work on is leash walking outside where I live anyway. And so you need to be able to explain this opposition reflex thing. So instead of having to explain it in a bubble, they're showing you right there that it happens every day. And then on the other side of that is, okay, now they're holding the leash. What are they doing? They're obviously holding the dog back, but they're also usually, for lack of a better term, they're throwing up on the dog by talking to it and, basically saying, "Good job for doing what you're doing," over and over and over again, and not effectively communicating to their dog.
Yeah, it's we used to call that Charlie Brown's teacher. Now I'm dating myself, but that's what the dogs hear when owners talk. Let's talk to owners a little bit about what they can look for. Like in that situation, we know what you're looking for, but let's reframe it. The owners, standing there, posting up, holding the dog back. What are some of the subtle signs that the owner should be looking for in the dog to see that shift at their state of mind?
Well, I think the only thing an owner can do in that particular situation is I let them braille for a minute or two, sometimes 5, it depends on the situation. And I kind of let them do what they're doing. And then I finally go, "Okay, stop. What I want you to do now is do nothing. Don't do anything. Don't pet your dog, ignore your dog." And then as the dog starts to calm down a little bit, now some never do, but most do. I'd say most do. Loosen your leash up. I still don't want your dog to get to me, but you need to loosen your leash up and see if we can get rid of that back pressure. So if your dog wants to lay down, let them lay down and have the leash be barely loose to them. so that we get rid of that opposition reflex, because that's, you know, the behavior on steroids, right? And so we get rid of that, and then most of the time at that point, I actually tell people to put their dog away, because we need to have a conversation on, okay, what just happened there, and we need to be able to focus on, you know, what's going on, so that we can talk about the why, and we can then eventually talk about the how after we build up the why.
Yeah, when we're talking, I mean, usually when we start with in-home training, we want to start off with that structured walk, because that really sets the tone as to what the dog's expected to do when he goes out on a leash. And then how do we communicate to that dog down the leash? Are there appropriate tools for the job? You know, what are we using to walk with them? If the dog's fixating on things, do you have the ability to break that fixation? Because when they fixate, they're escalating. They're going from that 0 to 10. And when they get to 10, they're going bananas at the end of the leash. You've got to have that ability to stop them around a 3. I guess another component to that is the owner's mindset when they go out on the walk. They're like, oh my God, I got to go for a walk. I'm nervous if my dog blows up every time he sees another dog or person or a bus. A lot of times you end up having to coach the owner before you even go out the door on, we're not even talking about leash handling. We're not even talking about tools. We're talking about their general mindset. I've had people, you know, we've had to tell them to take a breath, like, let's stop for a second, close your eyes, and I need you to go out there and be confident. Even if you're not, I need you to fake it, because that dog is looking for some kind of leadership. Have you come across situations like that you end up having to, I guess, play a little psychology on the owner itself before you even dive into what the dog's doing?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you know, definitely. The number one thing I work on again is leash walking, again, especially where I live. And a lot of times you gotta be able to put some tools into place to help be a conduit between the owner and the dog, so that you do have effective communication. You know, once I do my whole overview of everything, and I build some trust, then I talk about, you know, tools and, you know, negative reinforcement and getting rid of opposition reflex. And when I do prong collar introductions these days, I actually don't even go outside most of the time on the first one. I just do it inside of their house, so that you can teach the dog how to turn this pressure off. So all of a sudden you've gone from, you know, bad or horrible communication to not saying a word, and teaching the dog to turn pressure off. And now we have a way to effectively communicate with our dog, and getting to the point of, okay, how do you get an owner to be more confident in the situation? Well, if they can communicate better, then they're going to be more confident. And so I believe, like, the prong, for instance, is the best dog training tool on the planet. As far as just the simplicity of it, about 1% of dogs, it probably means too much. I see that every once in a while. 80% of dogs, game changer, and about 20% of dogs, you find out that they get desensitized to it, or it just doesn't mean enough. And then, you know, I have other things I add on top of that. So most of the time, Ray, it's like, it's just not going to happen without being able to effectively communicate. And I think the other thing that's nice about the tool as well is, let's say there's multiple people in the house. They're all communicating with the dog differently as well. So it's a way to bring all of them together too, you know?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the communication part. I mean, when I explain what a prong collar is, even though it looks like a medieval torture tool, it is a communication tool. It is, you know, as scary as it looks, it's designed to not cause injury when used properly and properly fit. It's one of the few things out there that'll break that fixation path when it goes from 0 to 10, because it's able to stop it. You know, any kind of pressure device doesn't do that. It just, in fact, it makes it worse. I know you spent a lot of time talking people off the ledge when you pull these things out of your bag and they see it for the first time and they're wondering why why does, Rusty the golden retriever across the street just walk along on a harness just fine, but my dog needs all this garbage on his neck? So how do you explain that to your clients?
Yeah, I think first thing you need to talk about when it comes to that is genetics. I mean, some dogs are more protective and territorial than others. Some have a lot of prey drive. Some have a lot of pain threshold. Some have a lot of just general drive for lots of things, whether it's food or I want to go jump on that person and say hi or whatever, And so I think genetics is always the first thing I talk about. And then let's talk perception now. Okay. So perception is huge too. So I think that's, our one of our main topics today. And perception is, okay, dog A, you go up to him and say, hey buddy, how you doing? And dog A goes, I love you. And dog B goes, I hate you. I'm scared of you. I want to run away from you. Right? So you go up to dog A and you spray them in the face with water and they go, I love water. And dog B goes, I hate water. Well, you can say the same thing for a prong too, right? You could say some dogs don't care. It's never going to mean enough to them. And some dogs, it's going to maybe mean too much in the beginning, And so perception is huge, but also, guys, perception when it comes to the owner or the public is huge too, especially where I live. Okay. How does this person that I'm trying to help perceive, first of all, what's going on before I get there and their everyday experiences? And second of all, how do they perceive if we do got to talk about negative reinforcement and potentially tools, right? And then so many of them say, well, I'm kind of open to it, but I'm afraid what the public will think, right? And so you need to address all of those things, because if you come in just, blazing at people, they're gonna run away from you. So you got to kind of understand why, see what they've tried, do a lot of listening, and then build a solution and explain these tools really well to people. So Ray, I heard you say this when we first trained together, and I still use it today. I'll say, when I'm explaining a prong collar, I'll say, look at a prong collar like a hammer. Okay. You can build a house with a hammer. Okay. You can hit me over the head with a hammer, but you can also just hit your thumb with a hammer. I want to build a house with this hammer. So how do we do that? Well, we control momentum. We control environment when we're introducing these things, so that we introduce them in as fair of a way as possible. Right. And then gradually over time, hopefully in a week or two, you're walking down the street where you want to walk, right? That's the goal. But we don't do that today, right? We slow all that down. And so if you explain things and you really understand the why and what they've tried, then and you understand how the dog perceives things, it just really helps you be successful. I mean, I probably sell, I don't know what my percentage is. You could probably pull it up, but I don't know, I probably sell 95% packages to people. And if you're not selling a package, there's one of two reasons. One, they don't have the money, which is very rare. Two, they don't trust what you have to say, or they don't think you can help them, or they just have a philosophy that doesn't jive with yours. And that's going to happen sometimes, of course, right? But the majority of the time, if you do a good job, you're selling a package and you're helping them be successful in the future.
I loved all of what you said. This was always, I remember when we lived in San Francisco, it was always one of the most difficult things, is how people were concerned with how they would be perceived by other dog owners for doing what's right for their dog. What do you tell clients? Do you have a thing that you talk to them about getting over that? Or is there anything that you like to advise people out there to get past all of that?
Most of the time, these days, and a lot of it's the office does a really good job, I think, too, is by the time they get to me, they're just to the point where they need something to change, and they've tried all of these tactics that don't work, because, you know, it's not appropriate to give the dog a treat because they're not in a good state of mind. They're not doing good behavior, or the dog doesn't care, right? There's a competing motivator, distraction outweighs what you have to offer. So it's not going to work. And so, I think that's part of it. But, you know, I definitely get clients that are very concerned about it. Not only themselves, but they're concerned what the public thinks, especially if they live in areas like, if you know this area, the marina or something, you know, kind of certain areas. And so, you know, I just kind of go back to, okay, I believe that this is going to be your solution. Why don't you try this in a bubble? You can always stop, right? You don't have to do this. Nobody's making you do this, and see what the result is. And then, you know, just take it slow, you know, and I always just explain to them too. It's like, look, a flat collar, I have nothing against a flat collar, a regular collar, but if a dog's choking themselves to death on it, that's more inhumane than a prong collar is, you know, right? So it's just a tool, you know, it's just the hammer, right? And so if you explain it to them that way, and then they're actually willing to try it, and you effectively roll it out to where you do control momentum environment, and don't have the dog be super stressed the first day they try it, or even the first 3 or 4 days they try it, then you build a lot of trust, you know? So I think it's just, you've got to build trust with people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, that's why I love our trainers that have been clients, because I think, and Ray and I were there too, you know, I didn't want to use training tools with my dog. And for no other reason, because of the way that they looked, and my lack of education on them at that time. So I totally understand where people come from. But I used to always tell people, it's like, I love my dog so much that I started a company for it. You know, I am not going to put a tool on them that would hurt my dog. So,
Right.
and and always look at what the dog says. You know, if the dog is going out having a great time and he's wearing this tool, there's your answer, you know?
Yep.
On that note, speaking about state of mind and the dog tuning out or just being disengaged from the owner, let's talk to people about, because we'll hear, oh, my dog's just stubborn or he's being defiant. Let's talk about what that may very well be when a dog just checks out from the owner.
Sure. So state of mind, I really work on this a lot, because I think this is really kind of the magic in dog training, or really what takes people to a whole new level. And so I'll just explain state of mind. So my 13-year-old dog, Gunner, is very protective and territorial, just genetically. He just has always been that way. He will always be that way. That's just the way he is. So my doorbell rings. He smashes the front door, barking and growling. He's done it ever since he was young, and he's going to do it till the day he dies. I walk towards the front door. Ray, you taught me this. Dog first, door second. Okay. So I walk towards the front door, and what I've taught him is to go to his place away from the door. So he goes to his place. I taught him what it was. I taught him to stay there. I taught him there's a consequence if he comes off. That's all built in. He goes to his place. I open the door and I say, please ignore my dog. It's not fair to my dog to be bombed, you know, even by people he loves. So we come in, I offer my friend a beer, and we sit down. And when Gunner is calm, I release him. And then the interaction is much different than it would have been if I just opened the door. So you change state of mind and behavior by your dog being obedient to you, right? So that's what I call the front end. I do that on the front end. This happened before the door opened. Now, life's going to happen sometimes. It's going to be the back end. So the back end would be an example of, you know, my little puppy. She loves everything. She sometimes still jumps a little bit. I'm still trying to curb that. Well, she jumps. I correct her. I send her away from me. So I send her to her place, and she doesn't get to come off until she's calm. Okay. And so you can shape a lot of behavior by your dog doing what I call the big three: walk with you, come to you, and be still. Anytime something happens, one of those three things has gone, has gone off the rails. And so you go back to obedience, telling your dog to do something else. And then we change state of mind and behavior by our dog being obedient to us. Just a little more detail on that when dog's kind of new at it and I'm just having them do place. I do it, no distraction or very little distraction. And when they're on the place, I'll go pay them. So the marker good means you're doing a good job. I want you to continue. So say they're laying there, their head's down. I'll walk up to them, good, and pet them. Good, and give them a treat. And then have a very defined release command too. So it's really easy for a dog to be a PhD in crazy or escalated state of mind. You don't need to get them any better at that, right? But you can't tell a dog, calm down, relax, chill out. They don't understand what that means. You're just throwing up on them. So you change state of mind and behavior by your dog being obedient to you.
So we're talking about state of mind of the dog. A lot of times we got to adjust the state of mind of the owners too, meaning being engaged. You've got a lot of people walking on the street. They're on their iPhones. They're not even paying attention to what the dog's doing. And then they start barking commands at the dog. How do you address that with a lot of these owners that don't even realize they're doing it?
Yeah, I mean, really, you have to call them out on it, and the more that I work with people, the more firm I get with them. The first time I'm with them, I address that, but I don't just hammer on them because, they are the one paying the bill at the end of the day, right? Like the dog's not doing it. And so you do need to finesse your way through that. But you do need to call them out on it. And I tell them that too. When I sell them a dog training package, like, look, for this to be successful, for us to be successful here, I need to be firm with you and tell you what you're doing, right? So one example would be, okay, they're walking, right? And they're walking their dog, and as soon as something stressful happens, they lift their arms up, and you can just tell that their shoulders are hunched back and they're just going into like panic mode, right? Well, you shouldn't do that on a harness, but it might not even matter if you do it or not, really. But on a prong collar, okay, you can't do that because then the dog doesn't have a safe place to be. The dog needs a safe place to be. The dog needs to know that it can turn that pressure off, right? And so that's a very, real world example of you really need to make sure that they're calm and relaxed and in a good state of mind and paying attention. Because where I live, man, they're getting bombed right and left by the world. I mean, it's busy here, right? Certain neighborhoods worse than others, but just getting up in and out of the building sometimes is like crazy, right? So like they need to have a good state of mind. But if they can get the basics down and see success in the house in a low distraction environment, and when I do the walking, I say, okay, a lot of times if they have a parking garage, I work in the parking garage, and then we move. If they don't have a parking garage, we go to, a parking lot or, somewhere where there's less distraction and they can have some success there. And then we do some things where it's more controlled. Like I bring my dog if the dog's leash reactive towards other dogs, and we slow everything down and they can see success. Then you can really break down exactly what that question was, Ray. And okay, when this happens, this is what you're doing, right? You're loading up, you're stressing out, you're, starting to say 5 commands to your dog that are just words. They're not commands, they're words. And you're just blah, blah, blah to your dog, right? It means nothing to your dog. It probably just means good job for doing that more.
I'm over here laughing. What I love this talk about training the humans because I mean we all know that's really where the magic happens, is making humans more aware of their dog's state of mind and their perception of it all. What are, let's just say, 3 tips that you can give owners to have the most success in their dog training program?
Number one, zip it. The less you say to your dog, the better off you are. If you guys saw me hang out with my dog, Gunner, I never say a word to him. If I want him to follow me, I tap my leg, he follows me. So getting rid of that is huge, because most of the time it doesn't mean what the people think it means. Being really careful with physical touch. If you give physical touch, we all love our dog, but if we give physical touch, we need it to mean what it means. So if we pet them, we want them to be in a good state of mind and good behavior. We don't want to say, don't worry about that while we're petting them. Or some dogs jump on you and you push them off really firmly, and that doesn't mean enough to them, and they think that means to keep jumping on me, right? I mean, some dogs are that way. And then the last thing is to really, if you do go down the negative reinforcement or the positive punishment road, is to really understand it, and implement it correctly, and then long-term build a system around it. Like, I hardly ever shock my dog with an e-collar. I use it for recall only. But I have a system around it to where the first one's free, man. You come, we're done. You don't come, I mark it with a no. You don't come on that, you're going to get some pressure until you come. But I hardly ever have to do it because he knows there's a communication system there. And you can do the same thing with walking a dog and going to your place and whatever. It doesn't really matter. So those are the top 3 things.
I've loved all of this. And it was just such a cool thing for us to be able to have you on after all these years of working together. Like, I'm very excited that we got to do this. Do you have any final words before we wrap this up for anybody?
Thanks for your time. Had a good time today, and enjoy your dogs. Love your dogs.
Agreed. Enjoy your dogs and love your dogs. And if you need help, we are here. Look us up at KoruK9.com and all the social platforms at Koru K9. And we will see you guys back again very soon.